The studio lights were hot, but Jasmine Crockett didn't flinch. She never did. She sat poised beneath the harsh primetime glare, cross-legged, eyes trained on the host like a prosecutor across the aisle from a guilty man. This wasn't her first political segment. She had weathered dozens. But something about tonight pulsed differently beneath her skin. The air carried static, the kind that precedes lightning. Across from her sat Paul Feynman, a polished anchor with a silver tongue, and eyes that always seemed to be reading from an invisible teleprompter. He leaned forward with his signature smirk. "Congresswoman Crockett, isn't it a bit reckless to accuse billionaires of manipulating our democracy without evidence?" Jasmine inhaled slowly, like a diver before descent. Then, calm, piercing, she spoke the words that would detonate through the Capitol by sunrise. If the American people knew how much money Elon Musk funneled into political black sites last cycle, the court of public opinion wouldn't be the only one demanding justice. The studio fell into a stunned, pressurized silence. Paul blinked, a beat passed. Then another. "Are you suggesting criminal political contributions?" She didn't blink. "I'm suggesting documented financial pathways that lead from his empire to PACs engineered to suppress votes and control narratives with no legal oversight. I'm suggesting we're no longer talking about democracy. We're talking about investment portfolios masquerading as freedom." The red, live sign in the corner of the studio pulsed like a heartbeat. Backstage, a producer stumbled over her headset wire. The clip spread like wildfire before Jasmine's Uber arrived back at her apartment. 15 seconds of surgically delivered truth. It hit every algorithm like a guided missile. By 2 a.m., her name trended alongside Musk's. The hashtags were violent. And Reverend Dot in the offices of certain senators, lights stayed on longer than usual. Phone calls were made to PR firms, lawyers, and, in one case, an offshore accountant. By morning, the silence from Musk's camp said more than a rebuttal ever could, but Jasmine knew. She knew what came next wasn't justice. It was retaliation, and it was already moving. By sunrise, the machine had awakened. Within hours of Jasmine Crockett's explosive claim. A sleek statement hit the wires from Elon Musk's legal team. Polished. Predictable. It labeled her remarks as reckless political theater, dismissed the allegations as factually baseless, and warned of possible defamation action. The release ended with a flourish. "Mr. Musk has always acted within the bounds of campaign finance law and has no affiliation with any black site political action groups." But the tone said something else. It wasn't outrage. It was fear with a good tailor. On Capitol Hill, talking heads kicked into gear. Conservative hosts called Jasmine irresponsible, obsessed with class warfare, and a viral clout chaser. One even referred to her as the Marjorie Taylor Greene of the left, but with better diction. In private, donors were angrier. Lobbyists fired off frantic emails. Senate aides dug up Crockett's voting record, hunting for inconsistencies they could weaponize, but she remained silent. On cable news, Feynman's interview clip looped on a 15-minute cycle. Anchors dissected her facial expressions, tone, and the precise legal definition of political black sites. Every syllable was now national currency. And yet Jasmine refused to elaborate. No second interviews, no clarifications. She declined comment to every outlet, from CNN to the Washington Post. In silence, she created suspense. The absence of denial became its own kind of proof. Meanwhile, junior staffers at the Federal Election Commission started noticing something strange. Public donation reports for several lesser-known PACs began vanishing from the open database. A timestamp showed an edit. Someone had tampered with records within the last 12 hours. At a coffee shop near DuPont Circle, an investigative journalist named Alana Vega received an anonymous file drop. Financial spreadsheets, cryptic, partial, but one name repeated. In the metadata, Jovian Dynamics, the PAC had no logo, no listed leadership, just a PO box in Delaware, and over $140 million in funds raised during the previous cycle. Alana's eyebrows arched. Across the river, Elon Musk stood on a tarmac. Stepping into a private jet bound for Texas, a reporter yelled a question through the wind. "Is Jovian Dynamics your PAC?" He didn't turn, didn't wave. Just climbed the stairs and disappeared into the fuselage, back in D.C. Jasmine reviewed a sealed folder delivered to her office the night before. Inside, a single sticky note in unfamiliar handwriting. They'll try to kill the story. Make sure it's the story that kills them. She smiled, just barely, and picked up her pen. Washington is a city built on whispers. But tonight they roared behind closed doors. In the basement of the Capitol. Beneath marbled halls and centuries of tradition, a handful of senior lawmakers met in a soundproof chamber known only by its code. Room 306B, phones were locked outside. The lights were dim, the walls, they said, couldn't talk. But the people inside had plenty to say. She knows something, said Senator Duvall, sweat glinting along his temple. We thought Musk was a firewall. Now she's drawing a map. Straight through him. She's bluffing, another insisted, though he didn't sound convinced. Across the city, at a quiet bar in Foggy Bottom, 3 former campaign managers huddled over bourbon and burner phones. One of them pulled up a dark web data cache. Lines of crypto wallet addresses blurred across the screen. There's a pattern here, she muttered. These wallets all interacted with Jovian Dynamics, and every time they did 2 weeks later, a major tech regulation bill mysteriously died in committee. The others went silent. Meanwhile, on the 9th floor of a nondescript building in Arlington, a political strategist dialed a number not saved in any contacts list. The man on the other end didn't say hello. She said the name, the strategist. Whispered. Pause. She's bluffing, the voice said. Even if she is, the public doesn't care. They want a villain, and we just gave them one. Back at Jasmine Crockett's office, her team worked without sleep. A young aide named Imani printed off documents in color-coded stacks. A former federal investigator, now on Crockett's payroll, traced shell companies through 3 continents and 5 tax havens. They weren't building a theory. They were assembling a prosecution. At 2:37 a.m., the Oversight Committee chair signed a formal inquiry request into Jovian Dynamics. At 3:08, a clerk uploaded it to the docket and leaked the document to the press 5 minutes later. By dawn, the story had moved from speculative to seismic. The New York Times headline read, Musk-linked PAC faces federal scrutiny. Is this the beginning of a political reckoning? And somewhere inside a high-rise in Austin, a private signal message lit up Musk's screen. They're going to come after everything, he replied with 2 words, let them. Because Elon Musk wasn't used to playing defense, but Jasmine Crockett wasn't playing. The marble atrium of the Capitol echoed with camera shutters and the thunder of questions no one intended to answer. Reporters formed a wall outside room 5A of the House Oversight Committee. Inside, under the chandelier's sterile glow, Jasmine Crockett entered, not with caution, but with command. She wore white, a deliberate choice. The same color as suffragettes. As resistance. As defiance, the chair called the hearing to order. Officially, the agenda was a preliminary review of her televised remarks. Unofficially, it was a public attempt at humiliation. The committee's majority, deeply entwined with corporate money, intended to reprimand Crockett, silence her credibility, and remind her who owned the game. It didn't go as planned. Representative Crockett, Chairman Randall began, voice syruped in false civility. Do you stand by your comments accusing Mr. Musk of illegal political activity? She leaned into the mic. I do. A murmur spread through the chamber like static electricity. And do you have evidence? She pulled a printed page from her folder and placed it gently on the desk. This is a timestamp from the Federal Election Commission's online portal. It shows metadata confirming that PAC financial records were altered, scrubbed within hours of my live interview. Without public notice, Randall shifted. That doesn't prove Mr. Musk's involvement. Crockett didn't smile, but her voice curved. Then I assume Mr. Musk will have no issue submitting full donation records from all affiliated entities, including Jovian Dynamics. Gasps fluttered behind the press barrier. Jovian Dynamics? He repeated. She nodded. The PAC whose primary funding source routes through holding companies owned by SpaceX subsidiaries. The same PAC that received over $30 million in crypto contributions within a single 48-hour period last cycle, and whose expenditures were directed at swing state micro-campaigns with zero candidate affiliation. Silence, cold and spreading, Randall tried to regain footing. This committee is not empowered to initiate criminal investigations. Then let's empower it, she said. Unless the integrity of our elections is now a partisan issue. One line, the kind that silences a room. Outside, reporters flooded social feeds with the quote. Inside, aides whispered frantically as the word subpoena passed between jaws clenched behind closed lips. By session's end, a motion was approved. Elon Musk and all financial officers linked to Jovian Dynamics would be subpoenaed. Jasmine stood. Her eyes met the press gallery. She hadn't just survived their trap. She had flipped the script. A storm was coming, and Elon Musk could feel it crackling beneath the surface of his empire. In a soundproof suite deep within the Tesla Gigafactory in Austin, known to insiders only as the Glass Room, a crisis meeting was already underway. The usual bravado was gone. Musk sat at the head of a matte black table, flanked by lawyers, compliance officers, tech advisors, and his most trusted political strategist, Rena Black, a former intelligence analyst turned corporate fixer. Rena didn't mince words. They have enough to force a public inquiry, maybe more. If this goes federal, your companies become collateral. Everything Neuralink, Starlink, Tesla stock movement becomes fair game under discovery. Musk was quiet, fingers steepled. The thin line of irritation at his jaw pulsed, but he said nothing. Behind him, a screen displayed a spider web of charts. PACs, shell companies, offshore accounts, anonymous donations. All of it built over years, designed to be impenetrable. But someone had cracked the outer layer. You should countersue, barked one of his lawyers. Defamation, slander, force her to retreat. No, Musk said finally. His voice was low, calculated. Countersuing a black congresswoman for speaking truth to power? In this climate? That's blood in the water. The room fell still. He rose and walked to the wall-length window. Outside, a fleet of autonomous drones was testing flight patterns across a controlled field. A symbol of control, order, but what Jasmine Crockett had ignited wasn't a software problem. It was moral. And moral fires spread faster than data, Rena approached cautiously. Then what's the move? Musk turned to face them all. We flood the system, lobbyist pressure. Media reframing. Buy the narrative before she finishes telling it. He gestured to a screen. A list of talking heads, influencers, think tanks, all friendly. All for sale. We paint this as an attack on innovation, on freedom. Frame her as anti-tech, anti-progress, anti-growth. One of the compliance officers objected, but the FEC must cut him off. The FEC is a fire alarm. I'm pulling the batteries. Back in D.C., Jasmine's team received a tip. A whistleblower at a digital PR firm confirmed a multi-million-dollar contract had just been activated. Disinformation campaigns. I generated headlines. Paid analysts. A media war. Jasmine looked up from the report. He's not sending lawyers, she said. He's sending chaos. But she didn't flinch. Because unlike Musk, she wasn't defending an empire. She was defending a country. By midweek, the country no longer saw the truth. They saw the war over it. Television screens lit up with coordinated narratives. On conservative networks, Jasmine Crockett was branded a radical socialist, anti-entrepreneur, even deeply unstable. A clip of her raising her voice during a past committee hearing was looped endlessly, stripped of context, and injected with commentary questioning her temperament and fitness for office. Online, the attack went nuclear. Doctored memes. Deep fake videos. I generated articles with fake quotes from political insiders claiming Crockett had fabricated the Musk donation scandal to boost her national profile. Twitter. Bots pushed hashtags accusing her of ethics violations, foreign allegiances, and even fabricating evidence. The volume was dizzying and deliberate. Her personal life wasn't spared either. High school classmates were contacted. College photos were leaked. A former intern was offered $30,000 to say she'd overheard. Crockett admit the allegations were a political play. None of it stuck. But that wasn't the point. In an age where perception outpaces fact, Musk wasn't trying to win. He was trying to exhaust the public, bury the story in so much noise it couldn't breathe. Inside Crockett's campaign headquarters, phones rang nonstop. Volunteers were harassed. Donors were getting nervous. One even pulled out, whispering about Musk's reach and not wanting to be part of a suicide mission. Her team was shaken. But Jasmine stood firm. "I'm not here to be liked," she told them. "I'm here to be heard." Meanwhile, the Oversight Committee was quietly tightening its noose. Subpoenas were expanding. Jovian Dynamics had missed its first response deadline. A former financial officer had lawyered up, then vanished. And sealed testimony from an anonymous insider hinted that Musk's influence reached beyond elections into regulatory approvals, aerospace contracts, and data infrastructure used by federal agencies. The scandal was metastasizing. This wasn't just about donations anymore. This was about influence so vast it blurred the line between corporation and state. Late one evening, Crockett sat alone in her office, the Capitol dome glowing behind her window. She opened a file, the original ledger from the Jovian Shell Company. She traced her finger down the entries, stopping on $4,250,000 to Polaris Strategies LLC memo. Data Ops. FL. GAMI, non-disclosed. She closed the file, eyes sharp. This wasn't a donation, she murmured. It was a blueprint. The attacks would keep coming. But now she knew why, because this wasn't about stopping her. It was about what they couldn't let her prove. The Musk empire had always operated behind reinforced glass, layers of law firms, offshore registries, and deliberately vague subsidiaries. But now a fracture had formed. And from it, the truth began to bleed. It came from an unexpected source. Darren Vale, a mid-level compliance analyst once stationed at a SpaceX affiliate in Nevada. He'd signed an airtight NDA, had a six-figure salary, a quiet life, but he also had a conscience, and a sister whose vote was purged in Georgia during the 2022 cycle. That memory never left him. Late one night, under a pseudonym, Darren sent an encrypted email to a secure tip line run by investigative journalist Alana Vega. The message was short. One sentence: "You're looking in the right place, but the money didn't just move through Jovian. It started with Solaris." Attached were internal memos, invoices for data migration services, but the metadata revealed the truth: voter suppression algorithms, targeted disinformation models, and psychographic profiling software tested not in foreign countries, but in key U.S. battleground states. Alana's hands trembled as she forwarded the files to Jasmine Crockett's office. Within 24 hours, Crockett's legal team filed a motion to compel additional testimony, this time from Solaris Data Systems, a Musk-acquired startup that had claimed to revolutionize civic technology. It was, on the surface, a social good initiative. Underneath, it was a digital scalpel designed to slice through democracy's weakest arteries. That same morning, the Oversight Committee released a notice. Due to escalating relevance and public interest, the investigation into Musk-linked PAC activity would now expand into technology-driven electoral manipulation. The Department of Justice submitted a parallel inquiry. The dam had officially burst. On CNBC, stock in Musk's companies began to flutter. Starlink's upcoming Pentagon contract was quietly paused. And in closed-door Senate briefings, intelligence officials confirmed at least 3 swing states experienced unexplained digital anomalies during the last election cycle, anomalies that now match Solaris's predictive influence software. Crockett stood at a podium outside the Capitol, reporters swarming. "This isn't about Elon Musk," she said, voice clear, unwavering. "This is about the quiet digitization of suppression and the American right to be heard without interference, without surveillance, and without price tags placed on our vote." One journalist asked, "Congresswoman, do you have direct proof that Musk ordered this?" She paused, then said, "Not yet, but we have his fingerprints, and now we follow the blood." That night, a federal marshal served Solaris with its first subpoena. The firewall had cracked. And the flood was coming. The marble corridors of the E. Barrett Prettyman Federal Courthouse were silent, but heavy, the kind of silence that precedes history. By morning, the courtroom was standing room only. Senators sat beside tech executives. College students camped out overnight for gallery seats. Even foreign observers filed in, sensing that what unfolded here might ripple far beyond American shores. At the center of it all sat Jasmine Crockett, flanked by her legal team and a thin red folder she hadn't opened since the morning began. On the opposite bench, Elon Musk's attorneys, an armada of legal firepower, 6 top litigators flown in from 4 different firms, each with years of experience defending billionaires against systems too timid to touch them. But today the timidity was gone. The judge presiding, Hun Miriam Leclerc, was an independent appointed under Obama, known for her strict adherence to precedent and brutal intolerance for theatrics. She didn't blink when the Musk team filed a motion to dismiss the congressional subpoenas, claiming political entrapment and absence of material foundation. Leclerc scanned the room and said, "The court is not a shield for wealth, let's proceed." The first witness was unexpected, a former DOJ cybersecurity liaison, testifying on record about Solaris data systems testing phase. Her voice trembled, but her words were unflinching. "We were told it was for voter engagement, but it was never that. It was about disengagement." Precision apathy. Gasps fluttered through the courtroom. The second witness, a whistleblower from Jovian Dynamics, spoke through voice distortion and a concealed identity order. But her testimony cut deeper than any face could. Everything ran through shell after shell. But the funding originated from entities directly tied to Musk-controlled trusts. He knew, he signed. Then it was Jasmine's turn. She rose slowly, a stillness in her posture that radiated gravity. She turned to the gallery first, to the country watching from living rooms, phones and sidewalks. This isn't about tech or power or even corruption. This is about silence being engineered. Silence turned into software, and software turned into law. She placed the red folder on the evidence table. Inside, financial ledgers, testimony excerpts, internal emails, but one page stood out. A wire transfer authorization bearing Musk's digital signature. The courtroom didn't erupt. It inhaled. Judge Leclerc adjusted her glasses. "Admitted," she said. "Now it was official. This wasn't speculation. It was evidence, and it was only the beginning." The second day of proceedings felt different, no longer the rumble of accusation, but the precision of surgery. The courtroom had transformed into a theater of truth, with Jasmine Crockett leading the scalpel. Today's witness was Dr. Nolan Rhodes, former lead engineer at Solaris Data Systems, the man who had written the first lines of code for the now infamous political influence algorithm, Project Ether. He entered quietly, a man whose face bore the weight of too many secrets kept for too long. His eyes flickered toward Jasmine as he took the stand. She nodded once, not as thanks but as permission. The Musk legal team objected to his testimony. They argued breach of contract, trade secret violations, and hostile witness manipulation. Judge Leclerc didn't even look up. Objection overruled. If we cannot question the tools that shape our democracy, then we are not in a courtroom. We are in a cathedral of power. Dr. Rhodes took a breath. Project Ether was pitched to the public as a civic engagement tool, but internally we called it something else, the silencer. Its purpose was to identify low-propensity voters in key demographics, mostly young, mostly black, mostly low-income, and hit them with customized narratives designed to increase distrust, confusion, or despair about the electoral process. A hush fell across the chamber. He continued, voice steady but low. "We didn't just target regions, we targeted emotion. Fear, fatigue, hopelessness. We modeled their behavior based on music playlists, online sleep patterns, and religious keywords. We could predict with 80% accuracy who could be dissuaded from voting and how." Jasmine stood. Her tone was clinical, but beneath it ran heat. "Were these algorithms sold to Elon Musk's companies?" Rhodes nodded. "They weren't sold. They were transferred as part of a performance-based acquisition deal. The more suppression the algorithm could prove, the higher the bonus." "And who signed off on the contract?" Dr. Rhodes tapped the screen. Musk's name appeared. Attached to a digital authorization form, a murmur broke loose. Jasmine stepped forward. So you're telling this court, the richest man in the world acquired a voter suppression algorithm, not to inform voters but to erase them? Rhodes's voice cracked. Yes, the judge sat back. The prosecution rested. And in the gallery, someone whispered what everyone was thinking. This is no longer about donations. This is about democracy hacked from within. Outside, headlines exploded. Project Ether, the algorithm that lied America to sleep. Inside, Jasmine quietly closed her folder, and Elon Musk's attorneys began to realize their defense had no firewall left. The temperature in the courtroom had shifted, not in degrees, but in perception. What had started as a hearing about political donations now roared with existential questions about truth, about freedom, about the soul of the republic. The media, once divided along predictable lines, was shaken. Even anchors on traditionally Musk-friendly networks were asking aloud, what exactly does loyalty to country mean when you control more of its infrastructure than its government does? That tension spilled into the courtroom as Elon Musk's lead counsel, Gregory Varn, finally rose to respond. Calm, silver-haired, with the confidence of someone paid to protect giants, Varn began with a narrative, not a denial. Let us not forget that Mr. Musk has given more to American innovation than perhaps any living individual. He built rockets when NASA could not. He electrified transport. He connected war zones with internet when no one else could. He turned toward the judge, then to Jasmine Crockett. And now, because he made donations through legal vehicles, he is to be dragged through public disgrace by a politician with a personal vendetta? Jasmine did not flinch, but the courtroom leaned in. Varn clicked a remote, pulling up images. Musk with Ukrainian soldiers, Musk during natural disasters, Musk at Mars simulation labs. Is this the profile of a traitor? He asked. Or is this what patriotism looks like in the 21st century? Not a flag pinned to your chest, but a network built under your fingertips? He let it hang. Then Jasmine stood and shattered the silence. There is a difference between building the future and buying the past. Patriotism is not defined by how many rockets you launch. It's defined by whether you believe that the vote of a janitor in Georgia matters as much as the signature of a billionaire in Texas. The room pulsed. You can give Wi-Fi to a village in Africa and still silence a voter in Atlanta. You can land a rocket on a drone ship and still crash democracy into the ground. Varn objected. Grandstanding? Judge Leclerc looked at him coolly. Overruled. She's answering your question. A soft murmur of approval spread through the gallery. Jasmine walked back to the witness stand, paused, and turned once more. The issue isn't whether Mr. Musk loves America. The issue is whether he believes America belongs to him. And in that instant, the entire case shifted, because what was once about facts had become a question of who America truly belongs to and who has the power to rewrite it. Rain hammered the courthouse steps. Like war drums the morning of day 4, protesters lined both sides of the barricades, some chanting for transparency, others waving flags with Musk's face painted like a digital messiah. The nation was no longer merely watching the trial. It was choosing sides. Inside the courtroom, Jasmine Crockett sat composed, though the room buzzed with a secret not yet spoken aloud. The leak had come at 3:17. A flash drive slipped into a reporter's mailbox. No return address, no warning. Just one folder labeled Deep File. Its contents, quickly verified by cybersecurity experts, were devastating emails, audio memos, and private Slack messages from inside Musk's political influence wing. It revealed deliberate strategies, discussed in cold corporate language, about shifting swing states without detection, monetizing political data, and installing narrative loops into social media pipelines. The crown jewel was a memo authored by a senior advisor. We don't need to change votes. We just need to kill momentum. Truth is a currency. We control the mint. And attached to it, an email chain with Musk copied in. He didn't author the words, but he didn't object. He simply replied, approved. Run the sim quietly. As the document's existence was confirmed on record, Jasmine's legal team moved swiftly. Your Honor, her co-counsel said, we request the court Admit this under the whistleblower protection clause. The documents are authentic. Their public release constitutes a material shift in evidentiary balance. Musk's lawyers exploded in objection. Illegally obtained speculative interpretations, context stripped, but Judge Leclerc raised a hand. Her voice was razor-thin. The court is not blind to truth simply because it arrived through a side door. She admitted the documents. And the room froze. On screen, projected for the jury and gallery alike, was the Slack message that would sear into history. AI doesn't care who wins, but it cares who writes the input. That was the moment it became undeniable. This wasn't just about Musk. This was about an infrastructure of engineered consent. About power without accountability and wealth weaponized into silence. Jasmine stood again, quiet but volcanic. What we see here isn't ambition gone too far. It's democracy treated like a system to be gamed. And that system now has a name, a server stack, and a price list. Outside, the leaked documents exploded across the internet. #deepfile trended globally. Inside, the court finally had its smoking gun. The game had changed. And now, no one, not even Elon Musk, could pretend the architecture of manipulation hadn't been built on purpose. The courtroom, once clinical in its rhythm, had turned volatile. By day 5, the gallery wasn't just spectators. It was a boiling pressure chamber of ideology, fear, and revelation. The deep file leak had ignited. Every screen across the country, the White House issued a statement. Senators demanded emergency hearings. And inside the court, Elon Musk's empire began to wobble under its own weight. But now, the defense struck back. Gregory Varn, Musk's lead attorney, returned to the center of the storm with a new strategy: discredit intent, strip the meaning from the evidence, turn calculated action into plausible ambiguity. It was a dangerous game, not to prove innocence but to reframe guilt as interpretation.